Welcome to Infinite Models. If you like building aircraft, any type of armor, how about prehistoric or current wildlife? Autos of all shapes and sizes and genres, seafaring subjects of all types, and figures, vignettes, and dioramas, then this group was made for you.
Gotta share a funny story with you guys. You know, when I come in here, I'm in this kind of mood. I gotta tell you a story. You guys will love this. When I was active duty Marine, I was working in a program office, and I had another Marine major that I worked with, and he was a pilot. Went through flight training down at Pensacola. You know, he went through the Navy flight syllabus just as all Marines do. And down at Pensacola, Florida, there's an airfield down there called Whiting Field. And at Whiting Field, a lot of the student pilots, they go through some of their first solos and a lot of the syllabus and the instruction that takes place. They will take off within the controlled airspace around an airfield. And then they have to, there's etiquette and procedure, right? So you call out, get permission to leave controlled airspace, and you go fly over uncontrolled, and you can do things and goof around. Hi, Glenn, glad you joined us tonight. And then when you're done flying in the uncontrolled airspace, you return, and there's certain radio procedures to call to request to come back into controlled airspace, and then you have to follow, you know, all the prompts and direction from the air traffic controller, because his job is to control that airspace. And so these pilots are going through that whole process. And Gene, they were dogging you earlier about your brachiosaur, but I'm not going to tell you that. So here's this pilot, student pilot, instructor in the back seat. He takes off. Yep, Glenn Janess from Southern Cal. Glad you're in here, my friend. This student pilot takes off, instructor in the back. He's making all of his radio calls and does his thing, and he's out and he's in uncontrolled space or over the water in the Gulf of Mexico, and they're just flying the airplane. He's, you know, maybe doing some aerobatics, maybe doing some practice formation flying and some other things. Well, they have to go back to Whiting Field, so they have to re-enter controlled airspace. And then you have a certain pattern, right, to approach an airfield and land, and it depends on the winds. And so that the aircraft in its most critical flight phase, immediately after takeoff and immediately before touchdown, when your speed, throttle settings, you know, and all of your lift configuration with flaps and slats and all that stuff, you're in the most vulnerable state. You have to make all these calls to get through that and land the aircraft, roll out, and so on. Well, and then the approach, you know, into the wind, good lift. And Bo says the brachiosaur, is that a T-Rex breakdance? Well, if it was spelled that way, it would be. And let's see, the live wasn't showing up on ATS. That's my excuse. It's your excuse, Gene, but I think everybody else kind of knows better. Okay, so student pilot, and if you know anything about, you know, aviation, you'll know even on some of the military training planes, they borrow stuff. And on the left wing, the side facing you, right on the dashboard, on a data plate, is the aircraft serial number. And Jeff says, learning airspace class rules and procedures was a large amount of knowledge to learn. Yes. So you're familiar with it, right, Jeff? So in any event, this guy, what you need to know is you make your calls and you are that airplane. So you can't say, like, you know, this was Vince. You say, if the letters were like N75214, I don't know, I'm just spitballing. So this guy would call in and you would call out November for the N, November 75214, you know, to the tower, Whiting Field, blah, blah. And that's how you communicate. And Whiting Field would call back and say, Roger, November 75214. Well, the student pilot forgot his airplane serial number. I mean, it's not like it's on the data plate in the dashboard right in front of him. It's not like it's in 18-inch letters on the left wing. Forgot his call sign for the airplane. So he's flying back into controlled airspace. And this pilot, you on the stick, you have a button to click for your microphone to talk on the radio, and he pushes the button. And the conversation between this student pilot and the control tower went something like this. Whiting Field, this is November 7, November 7, stand by, Whiting. Whiting Field comes back. Roger, November 7, Whiting, standing by. So this guy's thinking he's flying along, and you know, you have to get your calls in and permissions before you do things, and he's approaching his turn point to break into the upwind. He's downwind right now. He's going to go upwind, land the airplane. So he comes back up on the radio. Whiting Tower, this is November 7. Whiting Tower, this is Bob. Request permission for a left-hand brake and flare to landing on runway 23 left. So Whiting Tower comes back and goes, Roger, Bob, this is Whiting Tower, and you are clear for a 180-degree left-hand, port side turn. The winds are negligible, 2 miles an hour, gusts to 4. You are clear on runway 23 left for landing. And so this guy, he's in the cockpit, and when you start your turn, you turn your head, you look where you're going, you bring the plane to it, your peripheral, you scan the instruments and keeping your eyes on everything, but you got to look where you're going and line so that the airplane, the nose of the airplane lines up with where you're going, right? So dear old Bob, he starts his left-hand brake and he rolls into this turn and looks out over the left wing, and lo and behold, what is there but his call sign letters stenciled in 18 high-inch numbers right underneath his nose. So he rolls out of this turn and he comes up on the radio and he says, Whiting Field, this is November 75214, requesting permission to land on 23 left. Understand wind negligible. And the tower comes back. Bob, is that you? The instructor pilot is in the back seat behind his mask. That guy had to have a grin like the Cheshire Cat. Just Bob, is that you? True story. That's a TINS story. In the Marine Corps, we had things called TINS, T-I-N-S. It stands for This Is No Sugar. And that's a true story. So Bob Deadman says he's up missing his Tidewater meeting in Kentucky. Sorry, buddy. I know you're in Kentucky. Tidewater's a long way from there. But Bill Moore has joined us, and I know he meant, yo, Big V, but he put, yo, Bog V. And Peter's enjoying it. Yeah, Bob on short final. And with a name like Bob, it's short final. Steve says, negative, I have coffee. And yeah, Bob, I know you're out there in Kentucky. Enjoy yourself with family. But thanks for joining us here tonight. So yeah, Bob Deadman's going, yeah, Bob, it's me. Should have waved him off. Already had Bob landing. Yeah, November 75214. Clear. Bob is on short final. And Jeff says that controller could have been nice and had him squeak or squawk the transponder and give a courtesy read back. But that's funny. Yeah. So how many? Oh man. So have any of you guys ever heard of the name Gene Duncan? He's a retired Marine LDO major. He wrote books. A series of them are really funny between him and Tom Moore. He wrote 4 books to begin with called Green Side Out, Brown Side Out, Run in Circles, Scream and Shout. And that was a little ditty that Marines back in the day, you had your field packs were primarily green on one side for summer and spring and primarily brown on the other side for fall and winter. And so it was lore in the Marine Corps that you would get to your bivouac or wherever you were going out in the field for an exercise, and word would be passed to make packs green side out, and then only to be reversed later and say, no, sorry, everybody, brown side out. And ergo, that's where that little ditty comes from. Green side out, brown side out, run in circles, scream and shout. Those are the names of 4 of his books. And in those books, they wrote letters from Gene Duncan went by Dunk, and Tom Moore, his call sign or nickname was Dinty, like Dinty Moore. So Dunk and Dinty were writing letters back and forth to each other, regaling each other with stories of folks in their past. And they had a really funny one. And let's see, Steve says, hi, Bob. Bob Deadman says, Tidewater is having a bit of a memorial for, wait a minute. Bob, did Bill Brickhouse die? I hadn't actually heard that. I didn't know that Bill Brickhouse died. Not only was he a fine modeler, he was a hell of a gentleman. Let me know, did Bill Brickhouse pass away? Gene says, isn't Bob a guy with no arms and floating down the river? Yeah, pretty much. And not if he was at your door, then his name is Matt. And if he's hanging on your wall, his name is Art. Come on, guys, we can do this all night. Okay, but Bob Deadman, let me know. I didn't realize Bill Brickhouse had passed away. You say they're holding a memorial for him. Sheesh. No, he's second base. God, you guys are just cruel with each other in this arms and legless kind of person. So anywho, my goodness. Oh, the letters. Okay, so in the early days of integrating women into the military service, they started coming into jobs that they hadn't previously been in. And Bo. So there was a story of some Marine Phantom jocks who were flying their Phantoms and coming into controlled airspace in Southern California. And as they made their approach, they received a call from a female who was an air traffic controller, but they had never had a call from a female before. And these Marine pilots were not sure if it was real or if somebody was messing with them. And so they're flying along, and the tower tries to reach them. And so this female comes up, and she says, whatever it is, Snake Eyes 7, this is San Diego Tower, blah, 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 blah. No response. These pilots are flying in a formation. They kind of look at each other. They keep flying. And then this female comes back up, and she says, Snake Eye 7, this is San Diego Control, blah, 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 blah. And they wouldn't answer again. So finally, she reaches out to another aircraft that was in the pattern, and it was like an airliner. And she says, Delta 2358, this is San Diego Tower, over. And the airliner comes back up and says, Roger, San Diego Tower, this is Delta 7328, go ahead, over. And she says, Delta 7328, is my transmission fuzzy, over? And the Marine pilot comes back up and goes, I don't know, dear. How old are you? And they got in a little trouble for that. But we'll just leave that at that. Another cute little story for you. But that came out of one of those books between Dunk and Dinty. The title of that story, he called it, was There's a Beaver in the Tower. Let's see. No, Gene, nobody can open my room. I deleted it. Nobody can open my room. Ain't happening. So my room ain't there. Let's see. So I had those two stories for you. Let's talk getting models home. How many of you guys struggle with getting your latest purchases, whether they come through the mail or from the local hobby shop or from a local drug deal with a buddy of yours? How many of you guys have problems getting your models in the house and getting past she whom must be obeyed without catching a lot of grief over it? Do any of you guys struggle with that? I know some people do. I know I used to. In my first marriage, I had a wife who did not support the hobby. She was not good with my spending money on the models and spending time with my friends and going to, shows and club meetings. And she just hated the whole thing and thought it was worthless and was not ashamed to tell my friends that. And you'll note, I'm just telling you, she's my ex-wife. I have a wonderful wife who supports everything I do. And, my wife is really crafty. She scrapbooks and quilts and does all kinds of stenciling and building and crafting of her own. She's got her garden stuff she does. And I do the providing for that. And so as long as I keep her happy in her crafting, she doesn't give me any grief when I buy stuff for my hobby. And Andrew says, I will not kiss and tell she's part of this group. I know, Andrew, you would have a hard time. Peter says, my wife doesn't mind my purchases, but gives me a lot of heck for building on the kitchen table. Well, yeah, so if you're spilling paint and glue where I'm going to eat dinner, I guess I'd give you grief too. Mark Carver has joined. Hi, everyone. Don't have an issue with bringing models or trains home. She builds Legos. Very cool. Kel Small says, I'm up to my nostrils in Tupperware. My models are not a problem. For those that don't know, Sharon, his wife, sells Tupperware. Edward Recharge says, nope, my wife understands my addiction. Very cool. Jean says, not married. We live in sin, according to the 60s. Actually, according to the 2020s. But, yeah, whatever. Robert, I just do it. She's got her bingo. There you go. I'm just giving you grief, Gene. Jeff says, my wife is totally fine with it. I'll get one of those head shakes every now and then. I like to play the I could be out in the bars to relax card, even though I'm a rare drinker at work. Andrew, I don't eat at that part of the table. Mark says she helps pick kits out for me. Very cool. Gene, there's still Tupperware? Yeah, ironically, Gene, there is. And a lot of it still looks the same that you and I remember from back in the day. They've changed colors and they've done some other things with lids, but those molds are still going strong, man. Steve says, but you send me all the models I need. And I actually have another one boxed up for you, Steve. Funny you say that. I saw your stash of 2 and I went, oh my goodness, we need to do something about that. Tim Farley says, hello, everyone. Never get grief as long as I bring her something for her craft too. There you go. Wayne says, mine enjoys scrapbooking and quilting, but I was pushing the limits with that 1/350th Nimitz because of its size. I hear you. And Robert says, most of the lids are missing. Yeah, they've been melted against the heating element in the dishwasher because they don't stay in the rack. They're so light. Bob, you never answered me. Did Bill Brickhouse die? Or did I just miss your comment? Did Bill Brickhouse pass on? If you come back and tell me, yes, Bill Brickhouse died, I'm really going to be sad because he was a heck of a gentleman. So please let me know. I feel bad about that. And you haven't answered me. So you're leaving me feeling bad and because I don't know. So give me an answer here, Bob. Okay. I will tell you, when my first life, it was, he says, you missed it. Well, okay, so give me an answer. Give me an answer. Did Bill pass away February 1st? How about April 1st? Was this an April Fool? He passed in December. My goodness. Okay. Well, I really missed it then. Tom Andrews, I'm in the process of getting some dental implants. So we have agreed to put model purchases on pause. She does support my hobby, but has a bit of a problem with the weathering. And yeah, I missed. Thanks, Bo. Yes, he passed away. Oh, Whitey, thank you. There was a write-up in the last IPMS journal. So I've got like 4 copies of the issues of the journal that I have yet to read and catch up. I've missed all of it, guys. And Paulo, hello from Lexington Park. If you could spell in English, you nutbag. But I know what you're writing, Paulo. Thanks, Whitey. I need to go catch up on a whole bunch of reading. I've got over a year's worth of Model Aircraft Monthly up there that I have yet to read. They're sitting in my front room, and you won't believe this. So I point the camera over here. All of those are unread magazines because I've just been too damn busy. And Glenn says, what does Steve need? I'm sending him, so he's already taken care of, Glenn. Okay. So I'll tell you about sneaking stuff in. When I was stationed in Okinawa, I was an active duty Marine. And when I finally was able to get into base housing, we lived in they're called the Towers on Camp Kinzer. And there's 8 stories, and on each level, there's 8 apartments. And yeah, Lexington Park is in Chinatown. Thanks, Gene. Wayne says, all I have to say is that I'm happy that my house has an outside entrance to the basement. There you go. So the Towers, if you looked at it from the top, it looked like a big X, right? And so what you had was basically 2 apartments on that wing and 2 on that wing, and so 2 forward, 2 aft, 2 on each side, 8 total families for each level, 64 families in a tower. We lived on the 8th floor, and I got to know all 7 of my neighbors on the 8th floor, and I got to know most of the neighbors on the 7th floor. Well, the group over there, and Bob Dedman can attest to this, he and I were in Okinawa together. we would get together about once a month, and like 12 of us would stuff ourselves into 4 cars, and we would head around the entire island. We would start out in like Ginowan City and go north up one side through Ishikawa and all the way up near past Courtney and up near Camp Hansen, and then bend down and come down the other side of the island and pass back through Ginowan and down towards Naha and loop around and up. And our last stop was always at Shima's Hobby Shop, right near the Shuri Castle. And then we'd get back and start going home. And it literally, we would meet at like 7 a.m. on a Saturday, and we'd make this loop around the whole island. We'd hit every hobby store, every hobby store, every toy store that they carried models, every shopping plaza with or mall with, a hobby shop in it. We hit mom and pop shops and everything, and it was nuts. We'd hit everything. And Yonabaru had a great little hobby shop, but I swear to God, it was this wide. You open the door, and you had to turn sideways to walk through the hobby shop. And if you wanted to see what was on the bottom, because they had stuff stacked from floor to ceiling in that place, and there was like 2 aisles and then a cash register, and both aisles were like literally this wide. And so when we get there with a group of like 12 guys, you had to take turns going into the Yonabaru shop because you couldn't all fit in there at the same time. And Bob, no, I was not on Camp Butler. I lived up by Camp Courtney when I was off base for the longest time. But then, yeah, we started at Courtney. Yeah, down the east side of Yomatan. Yep. So, and back to Shima's. So, but when I got housing, I was over on, I said Foster, was that? I was the one that had the big exchange on it, and we were in the 2 towers that overlooked the soccer fields. Anyway, so I got to know all my neighbors. We'd do this tour around the island, start at like 7 a.m. We would end at like 8, 9 o'clock at night. It was an all-day affair. We'd stop somewhere and get lunch somewhere, pass through that trip, and maybe dinner. And then we'd all get back to where we started and get back into our individual cars and go back to our own quarters. And I always had to carry all my stuff, and I would stop on the 7th floor, or I'd go to the far side of the 8th floor, and I'd knock on one of my neighbor's doors. Would you hold these until she whom must be obeyed is not here? And they'd sit on my kits for a couple of days. And then when my ex-wife was finally out and about somewhere, I'd go over to their house. Can I have my models, please? And I'd go sneak them into my stash. And I always have things, if you guys have seen my stash, they're all stacked neat, orderly, lined up, aligned. And I would put them in there. And she never... I was never the wiser. I had to sneak stuff home like that. Glenn says, I've done that with a friend around Los Angeles twice when I was younger. 15 stores, pretty cool. Tom says, in 1981, I bought the brand new Tamiya F14 132nd scale and hand carried it back to the States. The hobby shop was within walking distance from Cadena. Noted. And did you get to go to Yogi's? Yes. Yes. Leave from Cadena USO. Yeah. So we got to do a few of those trips like that. So I'm just sharing that with you guys. So when we got back from that, I'd have to sneak my stuff back in within the next couple of days. It was nuts. But remember a few weeks ago, I was talking about unicorns, and I went through the list of some of the unicorns I had from the 32nd scale F105, which you guys all find funny because I normally build 1/144th, but as these continue to get worse, I'll continue to go up in scale. Paulo says, I am the guy my friends asked to hide models for them. Noted. That's cool. And then the other day, I told you not too long ago, I got that 32nd scale A26C. So the funny part is that when Mike contacted me about that, sent me that picture, guess what showed up today? I walked over to his house and we dug into that kit, on his kitchen island, and we're pulling it out and we're looking at it. I mean, like an entire sprue for an R2800 engine and a like one for the other one. And just a kit in and of itself. And we were just like, oh man, God, this is so beautiful. Drooling on all the plastic inside there, going through the kit. And when we got done, we pack all this stuff up, and I'm putting the lid back on the box, and I kind of tuck it under my arm, and Mike looks at me, and he goes, are you going to need any help getting that in the house? And I went, no, man. Joanne's good with the hobby because I keep her well outfitted with her crafty stuff and whatnot. and her gardening stuff. Hi, Jeff Bristol from Jefferson City, Tennessee. Glad you can join us, buddy. Bob's in here, another friend from Okinawa, and Kel Small. You guys are killing me. Ah, man. So, anywho, Mike's asking if I need help. I said, no, man, because what's going to happen is I'll go home. She's good with it. You know, I keep her well appointed in her stuff. She doesn't mind what I buy for my stuff. So, hey, it's Apollosaurus. For crying out loud. So I came home, I walked through the door, and I started showing Joanne this model. And she's looking at it and she's going, wow, that is nice. No wonder you really want one of these. You know, she can acknowledge quality. And she's like, just show it to me when it's built, because her mind doesn't work. She can't see this stuff on the sprue and imagine it assembled. So she's like, just show it to me when you're done, okay? So I got done showing that to her, and the only thing she said to me was, what do I get to spend now? And I went, all right. I know how much this model was. And I said, you know, this kit, you know, is kind of expensive. So she says, okay, not a problem. The next day, I start getting the receipts from Amazon. She ordered a greenhouse, 6 foot by 8 foot greenhouse. She ordered raised gardening beds. We already had 4. She ordered 2 more. Fencing, soil, river stones. And I'm watching these Amazon emails come in with the receipts from the purchases. Your item is shipped, your item is shipped, your item is shipped. And I'm just going like the old calculator days, the adding machine. Holy crap, woman. How much do you think that model cost? And she goes, you never gave me an answer. And she just went after it all. Yeah, build a she shed, man. It's her greenhouse. And I'm going, holy crap. So now I know, because we kind of go back and forth like that, now I know that I can actually purchase like 6 more 1/32 scale A26 seeds if I want, and she won't say a thing. So no, I don't have any problems bringing stuff.
We hope you have enjoyed this Infinite Models presentation.